I was just telling people a little bit about how I met you. Um, I ended up randomly at an ashram in Ubud, Bali. I showed up in my red track pants and a crop top, and Guruji was sitting outside while a big statue of the Devi was being brought into this very beautiful ashram in Ubud. And for some reason later on, in the during the satsang, he kept referring to me as Manika. And then he said, "I'm sorry I keep calling you that. I don't know why I keep calling you that." And I looked at him, and miraculously I was like, well, my grandfather, who is a Sanskrit scholar and a Pandit from Jammu Kashmir, named me Manika. I go by Monica because I grew up in the US, so Monica is just easier. But I thought, wow, this being recognizes this being, and a psychic also predicted that I would meet a great teacher and a great friend who had footing in Java, Jakarta, and Bali. They kept saying Java, Jakarta, and Bali. And when I met Guruji, I found out his first center was in Java, his second center in Jakarta, and his third in Bali. Also quite synchronous. So when everything is falling down, also because I come from the family system that I come from, I've been blessed to have great guidance and soothing and nourishment through relationships with great masters. And I consider Guruji one of them. So when nothing makes sense and my heart is breaking, sometimes I send him a WhatsApp. And it's been feeling that way now for more than 2 weeks, with the war that's happening in between Palestine and Israel, and how that's also impacting the global climate around pick a side. Why, when there are deaths of people of color, it matters less on a global frame than when there are deaths of white-skinned people. And if you're not vocal enough on Instagram or on your social media, if you're not picking a side, then you're a terrorist or you're on the side of terrorism. All of these things that I'm sure everybody's going through on an individual level, in the collective. And sometimes I wonder, what do the mystics say? What is the spiritual aspect of this happening? For me, suffering is okay as long as I'm becoming something better, right? Like, okay, sure, I'll suffer. Everything's horrible, but in the end, something purifies, and I've learned a lesson. I'm very curious about what is the lesson right now? What can we focus on? What can be the lifeline, in the sinking seas?
Yeah. Monica, I think what is happening outside is giving us a chance, giving us an opportunity to observe what am I doing about this. So, am I just following the norms, just the old, same patterns, and just following the tide, or am I doing something? Am I contributing towards something that is new? And I think we have not differentiated enough between growth and success and progress, rather. Are we progressing on the path, or we are just growing? So most of us are just growing. We are growing, but there's no progress. Now, what is happening outside, we have no control over it. We have absolutely no control over it. What is happening inside us, we have control. And I think that's the whole game, the whole Leela is about that. What is happening to me in view of whatever is happening outside? How am I responding to it? Am I just sitting down and watching the show, or am I contributing? Am I responding? So that is most important. Now, whether I'm successful or not, that's not important, because the world has been going on like this ever since the world has been there. So That is the second, third, fourth issue. What is important, am I doing something about it? If I'm doing something about it, then I think I'm progressing. Otherwise, no.
So I have a question about doing something about it, because that could equal, for example, for most of us who are not in Israel or Palestine, that could equal donating money to those in need. It could equal an Instagram post. It could equal rallying people together to do group meditations, or offering a song, or offering a poem. In this time where instant gratification, right? The digital world is very instant.
Right.
The algorithm supports fast. When you're not fast, the algorithm actually slowly moves you away. Now, as someone who used to post very often and engage on Instagram very often, I've consciously moved away from doing it often, and what that's equaled is fewer people watch my work. That's just how it is now. So from a spiritual perspective, the way that this system is designed is one must do things quickly. But what that also means is a byproduct of moving very fast, is people often aren't taking the time to really understand if the information is true, if it's real, to understand all the perspectives, differing perspectives. When we feel pain, you see death on your phone, you react like humans react. It's abominable, it's horrific, it angers you, it makes you cry. And then you think, okay, I should do something. And what doing something equals is perpetuating that information when we haven't even taken the time to know what's true or to understand the whole picture. What advice can you give? And again, from a spiritual perspective, I'm also curious, why design things in such a way? And I'm often existence, we have no control over the external world. Okay. Something else is guiding the way that everything moves. Okay. Now we have to pay attention to our internal state. So then does that mean that when I look at this death, destruction, bombs, whole cities flattened, that what should someone do in their internal state? Can you offer some advice?
Where do I stand? I think we have discussed this earlier also, Monica. I was suggesting that you as a singer, that's your swadharma, that's your dharma, that's your potential where you are. So going to Instagram would not be your dharma, but singing about it would be your dharma. So you have to connect this with your potential, your potency, what you are into. If I cannot sing perhaps, then what can I do? I can write maybe. And I have to invest some energy now. Going to Instagram or going to any social media, I'm investing a very small amount of energy and I'm getting paid for it. I feel, like you rightly said, that I've got thumbs and likes and all that. And that's about it. That's about it. So I'm getting paid for it, and then I can go and sleep now because I'm satisfied. I feel good already about it. So where is the energy? What kind of energy we are investing? Your karma is about investing energy. So, okay, going on Instagram also is energy you're investing. But the result will be in proportion to what you invested. And it's not going to help at all.
Why do you think things are unfolding this way? You said it's been happening since the beginning of all of life. I probably have asked you this before as well. It's why would the divine design in such a way where the death of so many innocents is necessary?
Well, you watch a movie and if there's no villain, no antagonist, no protagonist, no everybody is good, there's no story. It's as simple as that. But you see, for us to go through it is problematic, yes. But for the director, it's part of the game. It's part of the story. And if you remember, I said once that at the end of the Mahabharata, even Kauravas, they go to heaven. And Arjuna was so disturbed, even Dharmaraj was disturbed, the eldest among the brothers. I mean, we've been fighting them all our life, and now they are earlier than us in heaven. And I think Krishna or Narad, one of these, they said they played their role so beautifully that everybody thought they were playing an antagonist role. So they deserve to get some reward also. You know, what we see outside, the different story. Somebody's playing a villain's role, but he can be a good person actually. But in my role as Krishna, if I am playing Krishna's role, I must still go to war. I must still help Arjuna. I must still be in the battlefield. So it's everybody's role. It's a play, and if I don't play my role and I sit down, that's what Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna, that I'm not obliged to play my role, but yet I must play my role, because if I sit down, everybody will follow me, and they all sit down, sit tight, and watch the game. And who's going to play the role? The movie will not be there. But how good an artist you can become, that's the point.
In my case, because this is my dharma.
That's your dharma, yes. And that dharma, I'm not harming anybody. Krishna says you cannot even harm anybody. Somebody is getting killed, that's his role. He's being killed, that's his role. What can you do about it? That's the script, it's written in such a way.
How does one decode the script, though? How do you know who's the villain and who's, again, from the perspective of Palestine and Israel, again, I don't mean to be direct, this is not about sides, but for sure, I think many people have probably been caught in conversations around what this means. And my instinct, when I heard that terrorists, that Hamas attacked innocent civilians at a concert, obviously being a musician as well, I was devastated. I can't even imagine what that would be like if a bunch of my patrons, my peers, were celebrating, the ras, as you say, of life, like singing, dancing, and then just captured, shot, slaughtered, raped. That's devastating. But in the same breath, seeing an entire people flattened in Palestine doesn't feel like a just response, So, and again, it's like, so I take this big story and I relate it to my life, and I think about patterns of abuse, for example. I'm in a relationship, like, say, I'll share, like, with my own father, right? Where the pattern was inherited of abuse. That when he would scream at me, I would scream back to defend myself. But eventually I'd come to a point where he'd scream at me and I'd just look at him, and neither did the scream affect me the way that it used to, nor did I feel the need to scream back, because participating in that wasn't helping either of us. There was no result that was any better, as a result of me engaging in the screaming match. But so that's one part where this is how my brain works. And then the next part is, but if somebody is hitting me, wouldn't I hit them back? And
you hit back in with all your might. Right. So in this case, it's very risky for me to even mention those names, but in this case, the one who is hitting back is hitting with all his might, because he has got nothing else. He has his might.
But when do we know that it's enough? Like, enough? message received, you know, people obliterated. It's how does one, here's another question that comes up for me. Okay, I understand conceptually now, after having done enough hours of meditation, that there are states deep enough where something else begins to activate. It's only happened to me maybe once or twice, but I understand that someone like you may live like that, right? Where you receive these insights and these messages, you can't explain it, and it comes from somewhere else. So then I'm curious in these moments is, for someone who can as clearly as than most living beings communicate with the other realms, is there something we haven't done enough of? I remember you saying during lockdown that you hope we had learned our lesson, otherwise there was more coming. Do you feel like this is the momentum of exactly that, what you were speaking of then?
Yes, and I think I would say that my feeling, no, I cannot guarantee that I'm 100% right or something. I have my own doubts also, but my observation, my conclusion so far is that we as collectively, as human beings, as humankind, we have not progressed an inch. We are just growing, that's all. We are not progressed at all. And if we all progress, what happens if we all progress, we all become spiritual beings? The entire existence comes to a standstill. This conflict, our mind is full of conflict, and that is keeping us alive. Once the conflict, our mind gone, there you attend samadhi. Samadhi is the equanimity, equilibrium, and there is no conflict, there's nothing. And within 21 days, Ramakrishna Paraman says, the body will drop itself. You cannot hold it. So this entire existence is being held because of conflict. What is my role now? Am I going to become part of the conflict? Or am I just to be an onlooker, just watching it? Or am I doing something, no matter how little, that I think I should be doing? So I think my own choice would be to do something, no matter how little. Like, I would rather go back to history. I'm a student of history, and I would rather go back to history and try to understand this conflict. Instead of passing any remarks first, I would like to understand this conflict and discuss my understanding with scholars. And they say, look, we are not seeing this from that perspective. So when you see the things, your reaction, your response can be different. Although I'm not justifying all the killings. No, I'm not. But the response is different. Okay, like you when you say in the West or even in the East, in India, Kal ki baat purani, whatever happened yesterday is an old thing. Just forget it. What has happened has happened. And you go to certain countries when they say that, look, I remember what happened yesterday. They are holding on to their experience. Now, what to do with that? It's two different ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
We learn from history, we study history, we learn from history. And then somebody is saying, look, I remember history. Now, remembering history is a different story. Remembering history is remembering who killed whom. But learning from history is that nobody is helped, nobody is a winner. At the end of the day, if you learn from Mahabharata, the Kauravas and Pandavas all were devastated. Everyone lost their dear and near ones. So when Kunti, for instance, Dhritarashtra's wife, Gandhari, she was complaining to Krishna that you have created all this thing and everybody is dead. All my sons are dead. And then Krishna said, do you recognize that Shav, that dead body, that corpse? He's my nephew, Abhimanyu. And he was all alone. He was attacked by so many people. He was killed brutally. He was butchered. People cannot even recognize his dead body. And he's my nephew, my only sister's son. It's not that you only have lost, I have lost also.
But Krishna was so equanimous, so like his internal state was resting in samadhi that he was able to face all of these things.
I don't think so. I think he was the most miserable person on earth. But he could still smile. That's the idea. Right from his birth, Monica, his uncle is against him. He's trying to kill him. He's born in the prison, and then when he's growing up somewhere else, his uncle would send people to kill him. And then he finds a sweetheart in Radha, and he lost Radha. They could not meet again. He would meet Radha when Radha was 80 years old. And this thing went on, and when they finally met, he met Radha, and this is not in the mainstream story, but there are references in the folk stories. And Radha is telling that, Krishna, tell me something. What did you get after leaving Gokul? You lost me, I lost you. And you're preaching Gita, and you're talking about equilibrium and this and that. And you have your chakra with you. Instead of flute, you're holding chakra now. He said, Radha, do you see? When I'm holding chakra, I'm just using my one finger. But when I'm on my flute, I'm using all 10 fingers. I lost everything. And when they were parting, he said, Radha, now I break my flute. I'm not going to ever sing again. He was devastated. Far from being in equilibrium. You know my story. I lost Archana and I was devastated. I mean, I make no covering. I have no covering. I open myself, and okay, I feel devastated. But in spite of all that, the show must go on. I must do whatever bit I can do. I think that's the challenge.
How does one find the Shakti, the energy, when the depression feels so heavy, the sadness and the grief feels so heavy? Where do you derive your energy from?
Purpose. The purpose of this. What is the purpose?
And that would be your dharma.
That would be my dharma, yes. Yesterday I came. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, yesterday I came here and I went to school, and to see this 180 children smiling and dancing and singing, that gives me pleasure and okay. And then someone is trying to hide the car keys. One who was driving me, he tries to hide the car keys. We don't want Guruji to go away, so we want to hide the car key. And somebody went running. He collected all his friends that they wanted to close the gate, so that I cannot leave the school. So those things find me, okay, I'm doing a right thing. I'm at least bring some smiles to their faces, and that's the purpose. It's purpose.
So a good advice for anybody who's listening today to take away from this conversation would be, at least what I'm getting is, I should check in with myself, remember my purpose, remember my dharma, and give all of my energy to it.
True.
Because
true. And
karma responds to energy spent.
True. The dharma aspect is, the very word dharma is something that is holding you. To hold something, dharti is planet Earth, So planet Earth is holding us. Are we holding something? Are we holding on to some purpose?
It's interesting because there's been a lot of illness or just elders unwell in my family recently, and so I was watching this docu-series on people who live past 100 years old and what the trends or the commonalities in those groups of people are. And the biggest one is purpose, ikigai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can be getting together with your friends and socializing or being in service to your family. For each human, it's different. In my case, it certainly is writing poetry and singing songs and holding spaces for people to cry and grieve and laugh together. That's definitely my purpose, and I could do more of that for sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Guruji. This has been really helpful.
Right.
I love and respect you so much. And I have a feeling everyone will benefit very much from this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Namaskar.
And then